Afrosynthese TV. Afrosynthese TV.
Afrosynthese TV.
The first Afro television in Germany.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back on Afrosynthese TV. Mr. Davis, we're very glad to have you with us here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So first of all, we're going to start with maybe a small presentation about yourself. You can present yourself the way you want.
Okay. Well, let's see. I was born here in Germany, originally in 1961, back in August 61, about 7 days before the wall was built. That was not my fault. Okay. I had nothing to do with it. I was on a military base in Bayern. I lived here for about 2.5 years, and then my family and I moved back to America. I grew up in Louisiana and studied at Louisiana State University. I studied management and finance, and then went on to have a 20-plus career in with the number one or the number two companies in their industries. I worked for UPS, which was number one in the industry at that time. A company that became FedEx Home Delivery, which is number one. FedEx is number one in air delivery, but number two in home delivery. The J.M. Smucker Company, we manufactured jams and jellies. They were number one and still are number one in the world, or actually in America. And then XL Logistics, which is today DHL America. They were number one in logistics providing. And then finally at Target Corporation, the number two retailer in the United States.
So we can see that you have done a lot of things. So that's very interesting. So you're now a lecturer at university here. And can you tell us more about your job?
Sure. My specialties are human resources, international human resources, culture and diversity, as well as global supply chain management, because that's what I worked in. Those were the areas that I worked in the United States. I have a special contract, actually. I focus on culture, diversity, and of course, as a part of my class structures, I teach ethics, because you can't talk about culture and diversity without having some form of background on ethics. Absolutely. So I have taught and I continue to teach ethics in its most simplistic form.
All right, and you teach that at Javier University, right?
At the Berlin School of Economics and Law, correct.
All right. It's very interesting that you talk about culture. Can you tell us more about your background, maybe?
I grew up African American, which is always interesting when you go abroad, because people have sort of preconceived notions of us based upon what they've seen on television or what they've heard on the radio. But I'm a child of the '60s, so I grew up during the Civil Rights Movement. I remember the night or the afternoon that we watched television with my parents, or actually with my mother that night. And we watched as Dr. King's body was was lying in state in Washington, D.C. After his assassination. This had a profound effect upon me. I remember growing up in a segregated community, and then I remember the effects of desegregation. That is, when they forced by law us to mix with other people in the community, mostly the white people in the communities. I attended LSU at a time when LSU had 30,000 students, and we represented the African-American population was around 500 students. So we were about 1.6% of the population of the university. That in a state, the African-American population was around 35%. So those were always challenges. I can remember going to work and being the first Black manager, or the first Black supervisor, or the first Black account rep. So today, those things sort of don't exist anymore. America has had elected its first Black president twice. That means the first time wasn't a fluke, because people say, well, it had to be crazy, drunk people in the polling booths. No, they did it twice. And so this has led to where we are today in America, but it also has had a profound effect on all of the people who were around during that time. So our generation has, as a part of who we are, we have this need to see diversity, equity, and the equality for all. And so this is a huge focus of mine.
And since we're talking about that, how do you feel here in Germany? I mean, Yes, since you're also like the first lecturer in your university right now. And
Yeah, it's we have when I arrived at the university, there were a couple of I think two or three two African American, yeah, I think both of them African American um, instructors, but they were part time, and part time versus full time. You know, as you know, in Germany, if you have a full time work contract, you can go on vacation and come back and you have a job.
yes.
Whereas part time, you don't earn a lot of money and you end up having to source other opportunities in order to make a living. And so I did one semester. Someone I knew told me that a professor of human resources was retiring, and the school that I work for strives to have, I think it's 35% of their classes in English. And so they're always taught in English. And so they're always looking for a native English speaker. And so I sent in a resume, and they said, yeah, we'll take him. So I taught my first class. I think I had 75 students. It was an interesting challenge. I was allowed to pick my own textbooks and design the course. It wasn't that hard to do. I've done training before, so I just consider it just the way I would set up training for a company.
Yeah.
Was successful at it, and that semester, as the semester ended, because my German is not strong at all, I incorrectly filled out a form. And November of each year, they start the planning process for the next semester. And so this was the fall semester of 2009-10. So November, I received this email, very long email, complete these documents, let us know what you want to teach. And so I put it into Google Translate. And it translated that I was to put all the courses I thought I could teach on the form. So, and they sent us a list of all the courses to be offered the next semester. So I looked at the course load, and I can teach this. You know, 20 plus years in business, I can teach most of this stuff. I mean, I can't do informatics, and I couldn't do upper level marketing, but of course I can teach a marketing course, you know? So I had all of these courses, and I put them all on the form and sent them in. And they called me at home and said, why did you do that? You completed the form incorrectly. And I said, but I translated it, and it said, put the courses you think you can teach. They said, no, it's put the course that you have to let us know you're willing to teach that one course again next semester.
All right, okay.
And I said, oh, okay, I didn't get that. That's not the same translation. So then she said, well, why did you think you could teach all of these courses?
Yeah.
And I said, have you not seen my resume?
Oh.
And she said, no. Can you send us one? I said, but you already have one, because this is in the office where manpower planning has sort of three functions. You have a manager of manpower planning, then you have the person who collects all of the files. And so you have to send a resume, copies of your university degrees and things like this to this person. And then you have someone who does scheduling and someone who does rooms assignments. Okay. And so the person who collected all my information didn't pass it on to manpower planning. They simply checked off the boxes, because did he have a resume? Yes. Did he have his right to work in Germany? Yes. You know, they just did what is normal. It's a bureaucratic system. So the boss had never seen my resume. Oh. So she had no idea why I was applying for all of these positions, to teach all of these positions. So I said, and I thought about it. I said, but you should have it. I had to turn this in. Then I said, I can send you one now. So I sent it to her, and she said, oh, we have a program for you, for people like you. And so she said, you'll have to interview with the dean. I said, okay. So I interviewed with the dean, and he explained the program. He said, you know, he explained that the universities of applied science, they strive to have much more practical than theoretical. So he said, you would be perfect. Someone with all of your experience, you're perfect. He said, we have this program called guest lecturer, Gastdozent. And he said, it's a 1-year contract, but we strive to keep you as long as we can. Mm-hmm. So then all of a sudden I had a full-time job for 1 year. Then each year had to hope to get contract renewed. Second year I got it. then they came and said, well, we don't know about the third year. And I said, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do because I don't have any other prospects at my age. And then I got a third year. And then they were like, really, we really don't know. And so in the meantime, I had been working we have a diversity program called cross-cultural mentoring. And I had been, one of my students recommended me as a mentor. And so I had been working with that group. And in working with that group and being a mentor, I had interactions with the president of the university on a regular basis to the point I could walk up to him and speak to him and just have conversations. And I mean, coming from business, you want to establish commonality, you want to establish a relationship, you want to network, things like this. So that fourth year, he signed the contract to make sure that I had that fourth year. But then that would be it, because that job class only has 4 years. It's not a permanent position. So then I got the fourth year, and then I was unemployed for a year and a half. While they created a position, a full-time position as what's called wissenschaftlicher Mitarbeiter, research associate. So I lecture. They reversed a contract to make it 80% lecture and 20% research. So, but it's a lifetime contract. So my end date is the date of my 67th birthday.
Oh,
that's
amazing.
I am actually I found out later, I'm the first Black person to receive that type of contract at the school.
Wow.
And I'm the only one. Thank you. And I'm the only one. So it's wonderful and it's sort of lonely.
I don't know. I think I can understand both sides.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. And by the way, how was it with Corona? The pandemic. Like, how was it for you to teach and not see your students?
The coronavirus has changed the way we view the world. In my day-to-day interactions with my students, it is very difficult to teach online. Part of it is that for example, we just recently had classes talking about motivation theory, and we talked about Maslow, and I started off the discussion not about Maslow, but what are their motivations? Just ask the students. And you have to understand, we're doing the calls on Zoom, and many of them do not turn on their cameras. So I'm sitting watching, I just see when the mic turns on and turns off, but I don't make them turn on their cameras because when they're giving feedback, when they're talking about themselves, I need them to feel free.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you turn that camera on, I can see you.
Exactly.
And you have to have the personality that has the strength to be able to express yourself while being seen. It's a different place than when you can turn off a camera and just speak. Exactly. And so I listen to them and then we talk about it. But it's very difficult to teach online. We recognize now, we've had enough experience that after about an hour and a half, you've lost their attention. And I tell them that I know I've lost it because sometimes I'll say, okay, that's it for today. I can't go any farther. You need a break. Here's the assignment for next week. And then I say goodbye and I sign off the call, but I don't sign off. I just let it sit. And I see 4 or 5 that are still on. That means they've left their phones or their computers. They've gone somewhere else. They were never there in the first place. I just start laughing. So I tell the student, I can see this stuff, right?
I didn't know myself.
So you realize I can see it. And I go, Dante, time to get off the call.
Oh my God.
And we have you have the fun things. Someone's talking and you hear dog barking and you go, shut up, dog. I keep telling you I'm on the call. So I think that dog's her best friend. All the students laugh. You try to make it positive, but really it's not as interactive. And because it's not interactive, I teach both in third semesters and first semesters. The third semesters, I had an option to teach in person as long as everybody gets vaccinated, and we have to do 2G every class period. And I said, I'm willing to do it because the size of the class and the size of the classroom, you have to be able to sit a meter and a half apart. So those have worked out pretty well. Actually, we have some fun. But I can't wait to go back to classroom. It's really difficult because you can't judge the reaction. And, the mask masks our ability to read faces.
Absolutely.
And so I need to see your smile. I need to see who you are. When I did my diversity training online, their first question is to come up with diversity characteristics. And I tell them that, okay, the computer is going to put you in groups. And so I think I had 5 groups. And so I just told Zoom to create 5 groups and so on. And then it pulls them all in. I said, remember what group you're in because you'll remain in that group throughout the course. And so away they went. Then they came back and they gave feedback. And then the next question was to talk about an event, something that has happened to you that surprised you or made you mad, but it was clear that someone didn't understand you as a diversity in a diversity setting, incidents that you think are unique to you. And so off they go. And 45 minutes later, they come back. And I had this young lady. She's so sweet. She came on. She said, "Mr. Davis, did you put us in a group yourself?" And I said, "Why?" She said, "Because in our group, we all turn on our cameras, and there's 6 of us, but 4 of us are all of African descent." And I'm looking at her name because she didn't put her camera on for me. And I said, "Well, I'm looking at your last name," and I spelled it to her. I said, "That doesn't sound African." She said, "Oh no, it's Polish." She said, "My mom's Polish, my father's from Ghana." Okay. And she said, so we were sitting there looking at us, and she goes, Paul, turn your camera on." Paul turns his camera on. He's from England. He's Afro English. And so listening to them tell their stories, yes, they're the similar stories that we all hear. For example, in her case, she's got a Polish last name. She said, "Whenever I use my credit card, they make me show an ID. Because of course I'm not Polish." She said, "Even though I'm speaking pure Polish to them." She said, "But I don't look Polish, so it must be a stolen credit card."
Wow, and this is a story, and they all say stories like that.
Yeah.
It's quite
and it's the same thing in the Afrosynthesis, which we can discuss later. These are the kind of things that people don't realize. It's not a part of our white counterparts' day. And so they can't understand it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't happen to them.
Absolutely.
And so they go, "Well, it was for your own security," or no.
Exactly.
No, I don't want to be different all the time.
Absolutely.
I would like to just be normal. Just let me go and live my life too. So, students talk about how hard it was to find an apartment if they're looking for an apartment because they're Afro whatever. Most of my Afro-German students, based upon the statistics, probably are Ghanaian German because Ghana, the Ghanaian men I've met are very proud to say that they are. This one gentleman told me, "We're the Turks of Africa." And I said, I don't understand that. He said, "We have the largest African population in Germany. There was a wave of Ghanaians that came here. So we're number 1.
I'm very proud of it. You can see.
Very proud of it, exactly. So, it's really interesting. I try to be a mentor to all of my Afro-German students. Yes. We have conversations. And this has had to slow down also because of the pandemic. When I could see you, every Afro-German student that walks into my classroom automatically gets a mentor.
Yes.
Me.
Absolutely.
And so you get an invitation to come to my office. We sit down and talk. Some of these talks last 3 hours. I've had them go on and on for 3 hours, and I loved it. We just talk because people have something to say. We haven't asked, they don't get asked the right question. It isn't that we haven't asked. We as a Black people have not asked. It is that everyone else, they're so accustomed to no one wanting to hear it, exactly, that they don't talk about it. So I provide that safe space in my office. I'll tell you what's happened to me. And then they go, "Yeah, well, let me tell you what happened to me." And they get it all out. And I had one young lady say, "God, this feels good." I said, "Yeah, it does. You have to have someone to get it out." So the pandemic has slowed that down also. Mm-hmm. And for me, I needed that because that was my interaction. with people of your age and generation. So it is a big miss. I'll be glad when it's over, because now, for example, just yesterday, I had a young student. I asked her why we went through this. Why did you choose to have TV or Javier, and why? What was your motivation? And she was talking, and I said, well, I'm looking at your name, and based upon what you said, that's not a Kenyan name. And she said, oh. And I said, am I pronouncing it incorrectly? She said, yes.
Okay.
I said, well, you didn't tell me. I said, you have to tell me those things. So when she told me, I said, okay. And she told me her motivation. Well, she told the class her motivation. And I thought, okay, I understand. She needs a mentor.
Yes.
And I can't do it online like I used to. I feel like I need to be able to assign, because there's something she's looking for. And there are people out there that can help her. And I need to connect her to people. This is why I'm here. And this is why what you're doing is so important, because we need to connect these young people. I'm 60 years old now. I'm on the downside, sliding toward retirement. I've got a contract that says when I'm 67, they're going to give me money for the rest of my life. Okay, but for your generation and younger, the question is what's out there for you? And this is where, if I understood why you invited me here to speak, that if we can connect all of the initiatives and opportunities and organizations from a African standpoint that are going on here in Germany, we create a neighborhood, a community for our people. And we can still exist with the greater community. Nothing takes us outside of that community. But when those things aren't working for us, then we know who to turn to and talk about it. Because it's a part of our mental health too. We were talking about this yesterday about Maslow. This is why it was really important. You can't self-actualize if you can't get past some of the early things. If you can't find a nice apartment, you're searching in Schoeneberg, and because you work in Schoeneberg, but because you're Black, nobody will give you an apartment there. You go, wait a minute, most of my colleagues live here. How do I get an apartment where I can just walk to work? I tried for months to find an apartment. I went to open house after open house. I had marklers, real estate agents, or whatever you call these people, explain to me the process. And I said, wait, whoa, please. I've been living here since 2004. I know the process. And I said, why would I tell you I have a full-time, unbefristed contract if I don't? When I know I have to show you the contract. So how can you not believe me? What would make you think, oh yeah, he's got to be lying because they don't give those away? Why would I tell you that? I know I've got to show it to you.
Yes.
It just, the frustration. But people don't see that.
No.
They don't see our normal day.
And of course, they don't want to hear it if you want to explain it as well.
No,
sometimes.
exactly.
So it's quite complicated.
So it's a challenge.
So since you were talking about motivation, I think on the last note, we can end up with what was your motivation when you were maybe younger, maybe in your 20s, or maybe your motivation has changed with time, or what is it now? But can you talk a bit more about your personal motivation?
Sure. My original motivation when I started university was to have a good job. I wanted, fundamentally, I wanted to do better than my parents. My parents raised us to do better. My mother had a 4th grade education. My father had graduated from high school, but high school in Christiansted, St. Croix. So I have no idea what that looked like on a Caribbean island. For my mother, education was number one. Everyone needed to have one. So all of mine, there are 9 of us. 8 of us graduated, and I think my sister graduated with the post-high school diploma called General Equivalent Diploma, GED. I think all 9 of us graduated high school. 2 of us have 2 degrees, 2 university degrees. 2 of us have 1 university degree. And that's a lot in our family for that generation. And so what we have been, my motivation was to find something that I could do and do really well, and sort of buy a nice house, have a nice car, and things like that. The challenges were the challenges of an era in America, an era of affirmative action where companies were being forced to integrate and become more diverse by the government. And then on the end of my career, the challenges were different because once we implemented affirmative action, once white people and black people started working together, men and women started working together, there wasn't a problem anymore. There were other things to worry about, but diversity wasn't the big issue. And now we see more of it in terms of now every company has a diversity vice president of operation, culture and diversity within the organization. There's community development. We have corporate social responsibility. A lot of companies do a lot of good work. A lot of things a lot of companies aren't out there blowing their horn that we're number one. But if you look at their websites and you look at their people, you can say that in the States, things are really, they're headed in the right direction. Now, in terms of employment, we still have a lot of work to go, but we have millionaires and billionaires too. When I was a kid, there was no such thing as a black billionaire. So there are a lot of rich white people. There are a lot of rich black people. And I think for some, don't want to lump all of Trump supporters into one. That's a challenge for a lot of them, because having elected a black president twice, that wasn't the black people. The black population is only about 14%. And of that 14%, probably only 50% are able to vote. So we didn't elect them. We voted for him, but we didn't elect him. The Hispanic population is somewhere like 23%, maybe 18%. I know they're more than us. Their average family size is larger. But they didn't elect them. Again, it took white people. So there's a huge white population. And I'm 60, so it would be my kids and grandkids. If I had had kids 40 years ago, when I was 20, 25 years old, those kids those young people, not kids, don't remember a time when a classroom wasn't integrated. And so for them, what's wrong with voting for a black guy? My best friend's black.
Exactly.
The music I listen to is black. My sports heroes are black. My whole world. I mean, when you think about it, some of the most famous white artists today sound like black people. We sit and listen and go, yep, you're gonna need to blacken that girl up. She'll be able to sing if she blackens up. And sure enough, you see them, this whole twerking and all of this, that came from black people.
Absolutely.
This Miley Cyrus becomes, rich, shaking her butt, and we're sitting there going, here we go again. And even her father, he did some crossover, right? And the country music guys were like, wait a minute. And he's like, hey, there's a whole different audience out there if you cross over. So this is what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is upsetting to a generation of white people who are my age right now. Those are those Trump supporters, because they're looking back going, what happened? And what happened was integration. Exactly. White kids started hanging out with black kids. White kids started buying black music. White kids started singing like black people. All of a sudden, there's a harmony. And some of this is going to happen here in Germany too, because I watch as these young guys are rapping in Germany. I listen to some of the stuff my son, I have a 10-year-old son, and they know they can put it on in German because I don't understand it. But I German rap, huh? All right, well, I don't know about this, but it's going to happen here too. Yes. So Germany has to prepare for it. They're going to have to become more diverse. On the ground, what's important is the day-to-day, and that's where we have to get the message out that we don't want our IDs checked when we use a credit card. We want to be able to get an apartment in the same neighborhood as everyone else because I can afford it. Those types of things. And I think this was part of the outshoot for the outcome from the Afrosynthesis, that it's the day-to-day things that people don't think about. It isn't that there is absolute direct discrimination. It's those incidences. There is direct discrimination, but there's also those incidents that have become acceptable in our day that we don't want to accept anymore. You know, I just simply don't want to. And I'll give you a very good example, the last one, and maybe we end the discussion. But during the George Floyd incident, there was a 9-kilometer hand holding on a Sunday here in Germany, here in Berlin. And I didn't know about it. So my daughter had a cello concert. So we went to the concert and we were coming back and couldn't get to my home because the roads were blocked. So we were walking through. I had to park a long ways away and then walk home. And my younger daughter and son were with me, and we were walking. And I saw people from my labor union. I'm a Berlin employee, as an employee of the union of the university, and I saw IG Metal T-shirts. I saw what is mine? What is my union? You have IG Metal. You have. Y'all have to look it up. I can't. Hopefully it'll come to me.
Don't worry.
So anyway, now I'm bothered because I can't remember what it's called. But they represent all state employees. And so I saw all these workers out there, and they had their T-shirts on. They all had red ribbons that were like a meter and a half apart. And I was like, I didn't know we were negotiating a contract again. Because normally you only have a demonstration like that when it's time for a contract negotiation. And I told my daughter, I said, well, I didn't get an email. Because usually they'll send out an email that says, because their requirements. The union tells the employees, we're going to have a work stoppage or a demonstration on this day. If it's a work day, you have to notify your boss you're not going to come. You have the legal right to do so, and you have to go through all these steps. And I said, well, I didn't get any of this. And that one couldn't be discrimination because that's a bold email that goes out to everyone. So I thought, wonder what they're here for then. So we went on home, and later in the news I saw and I heard what it was for. And I thought about it. You know, they were all white people. Yeah. And they're all sympathetic to what happened to George Floyd. And they're all against racism. Yeah. And I thought, that's really lovely of them to care so much about us, that really is a positive thing. However, here's the problem I have with it. Yeah. They will all go home to apartments where there are none of us, where we can't get an apartment in their apartment building, where we can't live where they live. And, they feel that that's okay. Why don't you go stay with the people you want to be with? Well, that's true to a degree. I want the right to also live where you live. Mm-hmm. If I can afford to live where you live, why can't I have an apartment in that building? More than that. Yeah, I'm glad that you feel, and this is where, in general, German people, they get upset because they say, well, we do care about you. I don't see discrimination. Mm-hmm. And I go, that's because you're not looking in the right places. So on my diversity call, I said to someone, to the class, I said, one of the things you can try, because we used to do this all the time. First, get a black friend. And God knows my few black students just fall out laughing. Whenever I do this, I go, get a black friend. I say, you guys, all you white guys, get a black friend, okay? Now, once you've accomplished that, step two, first step, because this is a huge thing. No, get a black friend. Right. Then the next step two is start going places where they go and stay in the back. Watch what goes on when they're shopping. Mm-hmm. Watch how the cashier handles their money, their credit card, whatever. And just compare to what's going on with you. And even if you see something you think, I need to step in, don't step in. Yeah. Let them deal with it. But walk in their shoes. Watch. Observe. And I feel the same way. If I were counseling interracial couples, I would say I have no problem with interracial couples. I came here and met a German woman, got her pregnant, and then had to start a life here because I had to find a job and all of this other stuff. So I've got 3 little black children, but she had never walked in my world. Yeah. And even to today, she refuses to understand. Mm-hmm. Because to understand is to say, is to accept responsibility. Absolutely. And therefore she cannot understand.
And recognizing your privilege as well.
That's right. Exactly. Mm-hmm. So I say step 1, get a black friend. Step 2, walk in their shoes. Absolutely. Walk behind them. Watch what goes on. Watch how they're treated. And then you'll have a better idea and you'll be able to fight with me. Exactly. Because this is what happened in America. The racism was so blatant that people could see it. And so you didn't need to walk in my shoes. It was there. Everybody knew about it. Here, people feel like they're not being racist, but they look around and there's no black people in their building. There are no people of color anywhere around them. If they have to work at the higher level, they go in an organization, no people of color in that area either. But we don't discriminate against them. I go, well, how is it you think they don't want a good job? I always talk about that job, that full-time job where you can go on vacation and come back and you got a job.
Exactly.
You come right back to it, and they pay you while you're on vacation. It's really interesting, this benefit that the Germans give people with full-time jobs. They let you go for 6 weeks, pay you, and let you come back. The lady in personnel said, so your first payday will be, I started September 30th. She said, so your first payday will be the 15th of the month. Ooh, October 15th. Because in America, you paid after at the end of the month. And I thought, the 15th. So it's got to go past the end of September, past the end of October. So it's going to be November 15th. And she sat there and she just stared at me. And then she started laughing. And she's really nice. She said, I love doing this to the Americans. She said, you were thinking November 15th, weren't you? I said, yeah. I said, I'm going to pull money out of savings to pay my bills. She said, no, you're in Germany. She said, we pay you the 15th of every month. She said, so in 15 days, you're going to get your full paycheck. She said, look at it this way. You get half of it for having worked. Yeah. And the other half is the incentive to keep working. I said, oh, wow, really? So now in class, I go, let me tell you how they pay you. It's amazing, guys. You want one of these contracts, okay? And so, this really is important. And, I don't think that word gets out there. Yeah. And so we take it for granted because people are sort of, and I think the other thing is also the comparison with America. So it's very easy to say, well, you know what? You're lucky. Could be worse. You could be in America. Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? It's not your America, though. I'm dying to go home. Because my kids are so young, I choose to stay here and ensure that my kids have their father until they're adults themselves. But I'd go home in a heartbeat. That's my home.
This is where you want to...
I'm here because I have kids here.
Yeah.
My home is over there, and there's work to be done. I'm so proud of all of those millionaires and billionaires. Yes. I'm so proud of my nieces. I've got nieces and nephews who graduated from university. I was home last summer, and their children are graduating from... I got a nephew, a great nephew, who graduated summa cum laude from his university, had full scholarship to go get his master's in psychology, and he decided he wants to go on and go do his PhD. There was a time we didn't even think like that. They don't, to hell with what's going on with Trump. Put all that over there.
Yes.
Look at what's going on every day in people's lives. Okay, that's what's going on. There's been so much change, so much growth, so much to be proud of.
Yeah.
And so this is where we have to get that word out. When I saw your magazine, this is what I saw, that these are the things we need our kids to see.
Exactly.
That's why I asked Miss Torre to sign the book to Carla and Ella, my daughters, because it's not for me. Everybody would assume, I guess he's going to have his daughters read Michelle Obama's book. Well, that's nice. Michelle is a wonderful woman, but she grew up in America.
Yes.
Miss Torre grew up here in Germany.
The story is
in Schleswig-Holstein. Mm-hmm. My kids need to read her story.
Yeah.
You can read about Michelle Obama later. I'm not saying don't. I'm saying read about those from the environment that you're in.
They can identify.
You can identify with it, of course.
Yes.
That's it.
So last question, we wanted to ask you, what do you think about this idea of having like an Afro TV here in Germany?
I think that it's probably one of the best ideas I've heard in recent times, because one of the things I think about is before I came here, I never heard of Deutsche Welle.
Yeah.
Okay. So Deutsche Welle is for German people all around the world. Yes. So it's marketing fundamentally that there are some good things going on in Germany. Mm-hmm. So I see this idea of Afro television as marketing for Afro Germans, Afro French people, African Americans, for Afro diaspora wherever. So I think it's a wonderful idea, and I hope the format works for you. I'm sure things grow and get better, and you'll find better interviewees than me. But please, I hope you do. I can even suggest some, most people. But I think it's a wonderful idea. I think it's a great way to get the message out that we're doing things too.
Absolutely.
And that there is positivity. And maybe there are some days when you have to have a negative show, but that negative show out, it's an education because, like I said, people need a safe space. Consider Afro TV our safe space.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your optimism and thank you for responding our questions. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope that you guys will continue supporting us by liking, commenting, and sharing what we do. Don't hesitate to contact us if ever you feel the need. Have a nice day.